everyone. Welcome back to the MHP Show podcast. I'm your host, Derek Vickers. On the MHP Show, we talk about anything, everything that has to do with mobile home parks, management, operations, buying deals, finding deals, talking to mom and pop, negotiating, whatever we want to talk about, but it's all centered around mobile home parks. And before we get started, we're going to drop a link in the show notes for my free webinar where I will go through step by step on the basics of buying a mobile home park, turning it around, how to close a deal, how to get investors. I went through the whole process in this free webinar that I did. It's a little over an hour. Check it out. The link will be in the show notes. Now, I've got another guest with me today. I have Mr. Ty Thompson with me. Ty's an Army veteran. We love that. He's a PGA golf professional. What's your handicap, by the way?
Well, you give that up when you become a professional. So you play at 0 or better.
Well, Ty, man, welcome to the show. You don't want to know what my handicap is, right? So I don't even know.
Hey, if you're playing the game, that's a good thing.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Well, cool, Ty. So brief intro that I gave you there because I know you do a lot of things. You have a lot of stuff going on. So I'd love to, give us a little background of who you are, what you do. And then you can kind of lead up into how you got into this wild world of mobile home park investing.
Sure, that sounds great. Well, first of all, I love what you're doing for the audience. I love being on different podcasts and learning. That's why I was excited to come on here, is if I can share a few bits of what we've learned over the last decade and it helps somebody in their journey. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to dig in like that. So yeah, my background is very diverse. I went in the military during the Gulf War era and over 30 years ago, and I loved it. It was a great opportunity. I've been around golf my whole life. Actually played on the All Army golf team and then went to school after that and played for a short bit. But my dream was to be a PGA golf professional. And aside from about a 7-year stint, my wife and I served in Christian ministry work. And then I went into the golf business and made a career out of that. But I loved real estate the whole time. I grew up, my dad had a rental property, and I saw this vision of what you could do with passive income, how you could grow equity in properties, something that I was like, you're never going to earn that on a W-2 to be able to create generational wealth like that. So after I got out of the military, I can see the day I was sitting in my dorm room at Boise State and I bought Carlton Sheets, no money down program. And I wrote out a plan of how I was going to own $1 million in property, and back then that seemed like a lot. Today, it's like, you might get a couple houses, but I saw this journey. And so my wife and I got married when we were 23. And we got into a property, used our VA loan, and eventually turned that one into a rental property. And we were about to turn our other one into a rental property when I had gotten a job down in Colorado Springs, where I live now. I had gone on a journey as a PGA golf professional and got an offer to be the head golf professional at a club down here. And one of my conditions in taking the job was I'll be willing to work for a lower compensation if you'll give me the freedom to go buy another business or build a business or do something on the side that I know can create real wealth for me. And so it was a great marriage for this club because they didn't have to maybe go to the top level to pull in an experienced, qualified professional, and I got the freedom. Well, as I was on that journey, what happened was one of the members of the club had gotten into mobile home parks in the early 2000s. He and his wife left the aerospace engineering world. They were both NASA engineers, and when they were 40, they said, we don't want to do this the rest of our lives. So they somehow got into MHPs and owned about 10 communities. So in 2014, they approached me and said, look, we've seen what you do at the club, and we saw you go back to school and get an MBA. We've seen you on the finance committee. We have an offer for you that would probably bore you in about 6 to 12 months if you dug into it. And we'll give you a balance sheet business. That's what they called it. We'll give you a balance sheet business that if you do it right, it'll secure your retirement. So we started having a conversation about this property, and And we dug in, and I flew out to this place, and we started due diligence. I knew nothing about mobile home parks, but we started walking them, talking it, digging in. And so it was a great journey. And I ended up pulling in a friend of mine that's a longtime friend who had semi-retired. And I said, look, I need a little help because of capacity. Do you want to come in with a partnership on this, and you take care of the plant? I called it the 4 Ps: plant, property, and personal problems. I said, the manager gets to report to you. I will put all the systems in place. I will develop the technology. I'll put in the automation, and you deal with the drama. So it worked
There's
out
no
great. I mean,
drama in the
that's
mobile home park, Ty. There's no drama in the mobile home park. What are you talking about?
so. The guys that we bought this community from, he gave me a rule in the very beginning. He said, "I'll give you a rule." He said, "You're going to love the fact that the park is 1,000 miles away from you, and the second thing is, don't answer anything for 24 hours because it'll probably work itself out." Things spike in the Chicken Little, sky is falling, and I've really lived up to that, and it's helped me with some stress and anxiety with it. So I get a text of
Mm,
emergency. I wait a couple hours, and I get another text that says, "Never mind, abort
of
mission. We got to
course.
figure it out."
Yeah.
So that was great. So that's how we got our start, was really a relationship. I mean, golf's really given me everything. I do a lot of keynote speaking now and consulting. I left the day-to-day operations in golf in 2017 to start that business, and actually joined the club I was a part of to start this kind of second chapter of my PGA career. And
Mm.
some have wondered, why haven't you gone and just bought 5, 6, 7, 8 more, parks? But it was really about capacity, and I wanted to enjoy my kids in their high school years. And my youngest just graduated last year, so we're empty nesters, and so it's a new world. Yeah, but that's kind of
Yeah.
my journey to get there.
Okay. Yeah. Awesome, Ty. And I wanted to ask you and go back. So what was it that you didn't know anything about mobile home parks? So you're walking this deal. Like, what was it that stuck out that made you like, oh, I need to buy this? Like, what was the thing?
Oh, okay, that's pretty easy for me. I realized I can instead of going and buying 10, 15, 20 single family homes and having to personally manage all those, I can put this all under one roof, and I can get one manager and train them really well and let them deal with it all. This is a no-brainer. Also, the folks that own these communities had some strong money behind them. So the dollars were not the important thing. They wanted to sell or carry for 68 years to try to
Hmm.
bleed off some of these capital gains. And so it was about the right person to them, and they approached me. So they gave me a flyer they were going to go to market with, and they had how much down they wanted, what their conditions were. And so we met on the putting green one day, and I said, okay, here's the deal. I'm interested, but here's my terms. I'm not giving you any down, and I'm going to buy your membership interest in your LLC. I'm not going to buy the asset sale, which means I can then essentially buy their LLC membership. And then you're going to leave this much in the checking account. You're going to leave this much in the savings account. And then we're going to buy the 37 homes, but you're going to carry a note with no interest accruing or payments due for a year, so that I can infill the last 15 homes. And the guy turns and he stares at me. He goes, really? And I said, you came to me. I said, do you want to just get a check every month? No worries. You know I'm going to succeed. And he said, all right. Well, that sounds like a good deal. You're a good putter. That was his decision-making process. So to me, it was about a lack of risk. I said, I can't take on the stress. I'm not going to go mortgage my house. I'm not going to go, take this way. So honestly, it was a giant gift that made it such a no-brainer. Plus, I had somebody who knew Frank and Dave from the early days, somebody who'd run 10 communities. He lives a mile and a half from me. So I had this safety net. And in reality, I think that's what you've created for folks, you and Ferd, and what Frank has with Mobile Home Mastery. And it's a safety net for people to get answers and get questions. That's why I wanted to come on here, is I had to dig it in, and some things you just had to figure out on your own. The info wasn't out there.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean that's a good point you make, and that's important because in the beginning on the first park, like, yeah, I had some information, but it was still like I had to go in and figure a bunch of stuff out that was not fun. And I have got one of my guys in my mentorship program now. He's just put a deal under contract. I'm like, hey, on due diligence, we need to do this, this, and this. These are the 5 most important things that we need to get first, because if one of these is blown up, we're not buying it, right? So let's get that stuff first. But you wouldn't know that had you had not had someone experienced like to tell you to, like, hey, get these things first. It's important.
That's right. Now, I'll tell you one piece of due diligence that was really critical in the beginning. Let's talk about this 754 adjustment, this tax strategy allowed by the IRS. So if somebody goes in and instead of just buying the business like you're accustomed to, you go in and do an asset sale and buy the business, you can buy someone's membership interest out. And so it's a private sale. It's you file it all legally, but the entity, uh, like the start date of this entity is when they started it.
Mm-hmm.
We just happen to buy the interest out at a certain period. So the 754 adjustment allows you to do that and then reset the internal basis of the value of the property and start depreciation on the 15 years over at the new value. But there is no sale on the books. There is no record of a sale process that went. So you can have that step up in basis without having the increase of value, quote unquote, property taxes, different
Mm-hmm.
pieces like that. However, one really, really critical piece, and I probably should make a disclaimer. I'm not an expert. This is not advice. Do not follow what I'm saying without the expertise of a 754 CPA. But one of the
There you
things
go.
that's amen to that, right?
Yeah.
uh, but one of the most critical things is the legalities of the entity follow the new members. So the tax burden and the tax situation follows the members that we bought or the previous owners. But if there was any legalities, a lawsuit, any kind of thing that was in the past, it's going to follow the entity. So I would inherit that. So that was a real big piece of due diligence we had to dig into to make sure there was no risk. There was, what was the burden of that? And of course, we were friends. And that's why most people don't do it, is you don't know the people.
Yeah.
Why would you trust that, right? Why would you trust that situation? So to me, had a huge benefit. Seller carry, great interest rates. Shoot, they're like, take a year before you start paying on this. They wanted us to succeed. And because of that, we were able to, in fact, in the beginning, this is funny, we took no draw. We took no distributions in the beginning. And the time put a real crunch on my family. It really hurt my marriage for a period because it took me 12 to 18 months to really build this out.
Mm.
And the third month, I called my partner, who's a longtime best friend, and I said, we're going to start taking $500 a month because I need to show my wife this is generating something, but we were able to mostly reinvest everything back into infrastructure. Since then, I mean, we've repaved every road in the community.
Mm.
We've put hundreds of thousands of dollars into the infrastructure based upon that, and we've quadrupled the value of the park.
Yeah, yeah, and that's awesome, man. And that's, and I've talked to people. I think we talked a little bit about this before the show. Like, you don't have to, buy a bazillion parks to get you to where you want to go, especially if you have a lot of other stuff going on. Like, this can be a little side hustle for you as well, to generate some passive income and create that wealth and gain that equity over time. And so I'd be curious to know, Ty, if, what were some of the, I guess, things, and how did you kind of automate this business? Because I know we talked about, some of the processes and things that you put in place, but how have you automated the business to make it more hands off for you with all the other stuff that you have going on?
Wow, we've come a long ways. I sat down a couple of days ago and just made some notes to realize, how do we give ourselves exposure to the property and yet empower our manager? That was a lot of our theme, was trust but verify, right? Back from our military days, trust but verify. So we use Rent Manager, and
Yep.
Rent Manager is a fabulous tool. I'm a big software geek. It's a fantastic piece of software. So we started automating there. So we got in there, and for the beginning parts, I would print all the statements and trifold them and stamp letters and mail them out. And just
I
over
did
the
that
course of
too.
time, and I figured out, oh, there's a way we can automate this and make it create the statements we want. And then I'm going to pay the virtual post office inside Rent Manager to just send them
Yep.
out. It's worth my time to not deal with this. So then we started, I went out on a property and I probably have 16 to 20 cameras on property. I have full exposure to see what's going on in our community. But what's amazing about it is it makes our residents feel safer too. You know,
Mm.
we have very little crime. Just a few miles into a rural setting, but we had a situation where somebody came in and stole a kid's brand new bike from the bus stop, and the police had recovered that and caught them within 2 hours because of our security footage.
Oh,
You know, we
wow.
had somebody else kind of prowling around our neighborhood, making some people feel uncomfortable. And within 3 hours, the police were in another county at their home saying, "What are you doing in this?" So that automation of being able to have coverage. I mean, shoot, I had somebody drive out in the middle of one of our fields to go pick up their lawnmower and hit our wellhead.
Oh
And
my
they
God.
tried to deny it at first, and I'm like, I have the footage.
Dude, look.
And it cost their insurance 10 grand. It was 10
Oh,
grand
wow.
in damage. And had I not had that, I would have been paying for it. I mean,
Yeah.
I would have been, a he said, she said type deal. So we put in cameras. Then we started using Neat. Have you ever heard Neat? It's an online storage, kind of like a
Mm-mm.
Dropbox, but it works a little bit easier. But we just created folders for all of our documentation, started getting all of our stuff that was sitting in a file cabinet in the office at the property, all of it scanned and put into there, and nothing sits in a physical. I mean, we keep a copy of a title or something, but all exposure inside that folder. And then we went through and said, look, all these documents are missing for our homes or for insurance, whatever it might be. So we have an easy way to catch up into that. You know, they were doing water reads by paper, walking out, and then they would scan it to me or fax it to me, or not fax it, but email it. And so we got them, they're on a tablet and they go in, it's all done through the app,
Yep.
digitally, and feeds right into Rent Manager. The one of the coolest things we've done is we have a negotiated contract with Spectrum. And this is
Mm-hmm.
maybe one of the most things we're the most proud of. Our niche we wanted to do was to provide a tech package included in people's lot rent. So in our lot rent, people get 500 meg internet speed, free Wi-Fi, and 125 HD channels as a part of their package. So I said, I've given you access to all the knowledge in the world. I've given you access to healthcare worldwide. You could work remote right here from your home. And maybe that's why we have 99% occupancy. We flip a unit as fast as it can turn. Our
Mm.
collections are north of 95% all the time. But part of it is we're going to raise a standard. We're going to provide something better, but we're going to create this automation. So we started bringing technology in. That's actually what led to the ability to put all the cameras, because I own the Wi-Fi. So I can go
Mm.
to any of my park-owned homes and connect to the Wi-Fi,
Ah, I see.
and I was able to integrate the cameras throughout the operation. So
Mm.
so the Rent Manager, I even worked with them and I said, your automation doesn't work for late fees. I said, you're missing some components that fit our community. Can you code this? Can you work on this? And then we finally got that to the point where I don't do late fees. I don't do statement. I don't do charges. It just all runs on its own. Um,
Mm.
it's fantastic. So a couple other things we automated were, some of them are not just technology, but we empowered our manager to say, you have authorization up to $250 to make a decision on property. You have a credit card that has a limit of $2,500. That's really important. Sometimes I see people give people just the actual credit card and they've got a $50,000 limit. I'm willing to
No.
take the $2,500 loss if they hose me and rip me off and take off. Um, so just some of those controls of automation and empowerment. Just recently, we went to pet screening. Have you heard of pet screening?
I don't think so. Maybe I
Pet
have.
screening is a phenomenal product. It's a software on the market right now that is a free service to community owners. And what it is if we just launched it. So every resident has to go in and say whether they have no pets service animals, support animals, or regular animals. If they have regular animals, they pay an annual fee. I think it's $20. But then they're required to upload their vaccinations. They have to upload their support animal documents. Service animals are different. But then they investigate to see if that support animal documentation is legal. And they said that they have, I think they said 60% of the people who start a support animal application on pet screening back out and reclassify it as a pet because they realize they don't have proper documentation. So for listeners out there, if you've got pets, and part of the reason is it takes, it transfers that risk and liability. Pet screening takes that on, and people are signing, even those with no pets, they're signing to say, I understand I'm not allowed to have my friends come visit with a vicious animal or whatnot into my, into the community. So that was another piece that was big on automation, is moving that pet screening and, not a charge to us. So the other one that we've recently done, we're now 100% online payments. So we used to let people still bring in checks. We never did cash. We've never done cash in a long time. Too dangerous. But we wanted to move to full online payments. And I tried for about 9 months to nudge my manager, like, hey, try to talk to people, convert them over. Well, it didn't happen until I said, hey, manager, I'll give you $500 if you can get everybody converted by April 1st. And guess what? We were converted on April 1st. So,
Yeah, look, I can't tell you, like, we have a lot of stuff automated at our parks as well. And like, collections is one of them. Like, we just don't even accept anything else. Like when we go in, we give it like, hey, for the first couple months, we'll, you can pay, but after that, like, you got to use this number, cash pay or pay online. And it's so easy. And actually we like cash pay better because it's a little easier to reconcile on the back end for on our books. But yeah, that's awesome, man. And the pet, I like the pet screening thing because no one ever lies about their emotional
never.
support. Never. Like,
so they have a webinar. People can go to petscreening.com and they have webinars, I think, twice a week, and you can just sign up for free and they'll give you a half-hour demonstration of how it works. So it's a fantastic piece to automate that application process and just the management of pets in your community.
Yeah. And I'm assuming you're sending, like notices and stuff out. Maybe the manager's putting some out, but like, are you using Rent Manager, the texting and emailing through Rent Manager?
Yeah, so we the texting is fantastic. I mean, that's the best money you can add on to Rent Manager. We use it for global texting. I do a lot of the either approval or creation. If we're going to make a communication to the residents, I do like to approve that because I want to see what's being said, or having a communication. So like the pet screening, I send out the email globally from our manager email address. But then he manages all the, the running of the business. But we use the texting all the time. If we have to have an issue with a water line, we have our own wastewater treatment plant. We have our own water plant. And I mean, there's sometimes the residents a lot of times want to use it as a community board, but I try to limit that a lot. I mean, we do once a year, they'll do one that announces the trunk or treat for the kids. They'll just send it out by text but it's hosted by park residents. But it's fantastic. The texting, the email. Another one is I just set up Splashtop remote access to my manager's computer in the office. And if people it's a free service. You can use Splashtop for free, and it's a secure VPN setup. And so when he calls me and has an issue, especially my previous manager, we had a previous manager for 7 years and she was fantastic. And, but sometimes she would struggle with technology. Well, then I could remote in and fix it right there, or do the update, or, straighten it out. It got so frustrating to have a phone call trying to fix something on a computer. So Splashtop was an automation we used where I said, hold on real quick. I'll just log into your computer. Let's look at it. So that was another piece. And then we moved all of our contracts to easy landlord forms. I'd be curious what you guys are using. Are you using internally in Rent Manager with like
Yeah.
AmRent or?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we've been considering moving to AmRent. The one thing I like about easy landlord forms is they update it every year with appropriate state laws. So if something
Ah,
changed, they rewrite your contracts, and so it creates a new form each time if there's an
hmm.
appropriate law. So I would imagine if you're bigger, you got lawyers to review your contracts and all that and make sure it's
Right.
whatnot. So
Right. Right. Yeah, I'd be curious to know, like, because you're obviously well organized. You got your operations tuned in, and what I know is that someone that has their operations tuned in well, they get that through experience, through things that have occurred to get to that point. So what lessons could you share with our listeners, like lessons learned over the past 10 years of owning this thing?
wow, that is a good one.
Are
So
you getting the list out right now?
I have a list because I said I'm going to forget some of these things. After you do it for a decade and you've got all these different pieces. Um, but yeah, I did write some of these down because one of the lessons I learned early on was you can have a big heart, but you can't violate your processes you put in place. I think
Yep.
some of my ministry type heart, my friend, we gave people a little too much grace in the beginning and believed their stories. And so I learned early on that no pay, no stay, no play, no stay. You don't want to pay, you're going to be out, and if you don't want to play by the rules, you're going to be out. But what we learned was there's a couple of exceptions that we made along the way, but it was a very unique process. I'll give you an example. We had a longtime resident who got about maybe $4,000 behind. I mean, they were really in a bad spot, and we were hearing the story of cancer. There was some medical issues, and I just frankly asked our manager, I'm trying to build a community here. Are these good people that have fallen on hard times, or are these people that give you excuses all the time? So, like for that situation, we actually, as the owners, gave them an unsecured loan and
Mm,
paid their balance off and let them pay it off. And they paid it off. And then they finished paying off their home, and they're homeowners in the community. So, but what I found was I can't listen to excuses for 3 weeks and then 6 weeks. And so that lesson I learned pretty quick, and I printed it out on the statements, and we put in there, here's the collection process. After day 6, you're going to get a 3-day. And on day 15, you're going to get this, and you're going to go to collection. And um, when we got firm like that last year, we sent 0 to eviction, not
mm.
even a filing. We sometimes you send a filing and they pay up, right? But
Yep.
for us to get to the point where we were in our state, you can't file on your own. You have to use a lawyer. So we were spending $4,000 or $5,000 a year in legal fees, filing evictions and getting people out. And as people would get out, we would renovate and rehab the homes and make them nicer, raise the rents, and bring in. We have a pretty strict process to get in. And so all of a sudden, we started getting a higher quality tenant in, and we
Mm.
just have less issues by building a great community like that. So, but I want to tell you 2 lessons I really learned that are very different. One is, are you familiar with the whole notice of commencement, lien waivers, this whole world?
Yes, somewhat, a little bit. Not an
Okay, well,
expert, but yes.
let me tell you the $30,000 education I got from not understanding the rules in this. So, we had a company that did an asphalt project for us, and it was the third one they had done for us. And I paid them 7 days after project completion. And 60 days later, I got served by the asphalt distributor that put a lien on our property for $97,000.
Wow.
And you want to talk about a panic moment when, first of all, my project was only $75,000. So I'm like, how can you lien? Well, turns out
Yeah.
this company was going belly up. And what happened is they didn't pay the vendor, and their invoices were so screwed up that I got multiple communities' invoices attached to my legal filing. And I said, well, I'm the customer. I already paid my bill. And so I hire a great lawyer in this field. And he said, you need to understand that when you don't have a general contractor in the state you're in, you become the general contractor. And so you
Wow.
didn't follow the laws, which is you're required to file a notice of commencement. They're required to give a notice of furnishings. And then you get a lien waiver at the end. You don't have any of that. You're in a bad spot. We tried to negotiate. You know, it finally got to the point I couldn't sleep. It bothered me. So I just paid the bill and I said, I'm going to move on and I'm going to learn my education. I'm going to tell as many people as I can, make sure that you understand that you can be liable if you're not having a general contractor that's taking that burden. Because wouldn't you think you're the customer? I paid you to asphalt my roads.
Yeah.
Little did
Yeah.
I know I was the general contractor by law. So
Wow.
I found out that person and that business, he ended up with 3.2 million in judgments against him. He screwed a lot of
Wow.
people.
Wow.
So anyways, that was a big lesson. If you're doing big projects, make sure you get some legal advice before you dig into them, because boy, you can get stung real fast.
Yeah.
The second one's about refi. Let me tell you this lesson I learned. And you know this one. I know you know this. So we bought out the sellers on year 7, I think it was. So we were able to lock in at a 3.5% rate on a 10-year lock for a 30-year AM. So we have 7 more years at that. We're in a great position. We created what we wanted to be in an options position. So in 7 years, we want to have enough cash that we can just pay the note off if the rates are ridiculous and just sit and wait, or we refi it, or we sell it. We want to have the freedom. You were just talking on a show a couple of shows ago where you've talking about how it was a bloodbath because people are in bad spots right now. They've got balloon payments due, they have refis due, and they're in trouble. So we went through and did this. We got Fannie, money. And so they have different requirements and different pieces and parts. Well, we didn't need a lot. I think our loan to value we did was like 35%.
Mm-hmm.
And the broker kept saying, don't you want to like take, another $500,000, or don't you want to like pull out and distribute? And I said, why would I do that? Why would I want debt? Well, what I didn't understand was the power of being able to pull your risk out, pull your equity out. They'll do 70% if you want. But they
Yeah.
had told me in the end, yeah, you could have pulled another $500,000 at the same rate, same terms under your financial situation. And so that was a big lesson I learned, is like, oh, wow, when I refi next time, I'm refining to the max. And then I can either take that money and buy another community, buy another property, or at least take the risk off the table.
Yeah. Yeah.
So those
No,
are
I
some
love
big
that.
lessons I've learned. Hopefully they help. Maybe people are like, well, you're dumb. We all knew that stuff.
No. I mean, it's great lessons, and it's interesting how we learn. I have tons of lessons that I've learned throughout the process, like, just ones that we've had to unfortunately pay for, just like just like you did, and it's not fun in the moment, but at some point you may have to just kind of like, all right, we're going to suck it up. We're going to pay this. We've learned our lesson, and move on. So lots of lessons to be learned. Ty, have you ever had anything crazy happen at your mobile home park?
No, we have a class A 5-star, no drama. Derek, where do you start, right?
I
I
know. Give
love
give me a few of your best, man. I need some good ones.
Well, we could skip where the renter burnt our house down, throwing cigarettes in the trash can. That was a good one. But one of my personal craziest is I was on property. I don't go to the property often. My partner goes there a lot, especially with the exposure we have. But we were out there when I was setting up all the cameras. I went out and did that project myself. And a massive windstorm came in. And the manager calls and says, we have a lot of huge oak trees, 60-foot, these massive oak trees. A tree just fell on someone's home. I mean, in the middle of this storm. And so we go racing back. We can see the fire trucks coming. We don't know if somebody's injured. And sure enough, man, this massive tree is over the corner of one of our houses, crushed their cars.
Hmm.
And thank goodness they were okay. But boy, that was another lesson learned, was get some dang people out to your property and evaluate your trees and limb them up. And they do what's called creating wind channels. But more than that, you're removing the liability and the risk, because you're showing good faith effort to keep your stuff trimmed up. And in the end, it was proved that it was an act of God. Our insurance covered it all. I think if I remember right, the emergency cost to remove that tree was $8,000 just to get the tree off of the house because of the emergency situation. So that was one that was not, I'm like, are you kidding me? I never come out here and know I've got this, and you're in the street and it's just chaos. And people are like, you don't care about us. You got trees falling on it. Then, all this
Of
stuff
course.
comes up.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we had this other one where we had some contractors working for us in a home remodeling it. My partner was there with his wife on property. And so he calls him and says to this contractor, I'm going to swing by the house you're working on. And I want to check on what you're doing. And so he pulls up front and he says, okay, I'm coming in. And the guy says, no, don't come through the front door. I got something there I'm working on. Come around to the back door, which was a little odd. So my partner walks around and goes through the back door. Well, his wife stayed in the truck, and out the door comes a guy carrying a load of guns. They had like 5 or 6 weapons, and he chucks them into the trunk of the car and races off. And so my partner goes in the home, and he's talking to the guy, and, well, what's going on? And he's shifty, and partner comes back out to the car, and his wife says, that guy's partner just ran out and threw all these guns in the car and raced off. And he's like, no, really? Are you sure? And so his wife kept urging him, hey, you should call the sheriff. He's like, I'm sure it's fine, whatever. And so they end up going down to the sheriff, introducing themselves and saying this happened. And he said, there was a home close by that was just robbed earlier. So our contractors, who are felons, they ended up going to prison for a good chunk of time. So, okay, here we go. Another lesson learned: vet out your dang contractors who you're bringing in your property. These guys were stealing and selling guns right on our dang property. So
Can't make it up. You can't make it up. And that's a great lesson, Ty. Like, vet your freaking contractors, because they'll screw you. Like, you have to do that. Like, because there's so many wankers out there that
it's crazy.
fly by night. It's crazy. If they need money up front for a job, you're probably not the one that we want to work with. We learned that lesson. And the cheapest guy is almost never the right guy. I mean, there's no absolutes, but like, in my experience, every time that we've tried to do a job really, really cheap, in the long run, it's actually would have been cheaper to go with the 100% professional guy, because the thing that you had to fix down the road equaled more than you would have paid the guy who did it right in the first place.
Boy, isn't that the truth? We've certainly rebuilt a few decks, relaid flooring, that was done just years prior because it was done poorly. And yeah, we learned that too. Pay people a good wage, hire a good person that can get it done, is reliable. And I'll tell you, the other thing I learned from Frank's Mobile Home Mastery podcast is he talked a lot about always get 2 to 3 bids and get pictures.
Yep.
And we've really adhered to that policy. We don't repair water lines without pictures. Show us what's going on. You don't know how many times I've been told we have a $3,000 water line break and it ends up being $30, from a coupler at Lowe's or something. So, but yeah, the business is great. I love it. I think we can make a difference in the world. We can give. I take a lot of pride in we can create a community that's an awesome place for people to live, and they're safe, and it's clean, and they're respected as people. I mean, I do that with our manager. I mean, we try to help him make a great wage. We win, you win. We've given him some great bonuses. We've given him economic stimulus to get through the the tough times. Take care of your people. That's what I say too. If you're going to get in this business is going to do you very well. Um, don't be greedy with it. Turn around and reward some people that do well for you.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, especially, your staff and people that are helping you on the back end on a daily basis, like that stuff. Me, I'm a gunslinger. I need those people. And so I need that, like, those people just do, like, man, some of the people that help me with due diligence and the back end stuff is just, that value is huge, and you should definitely reward that. I'm big on that.
Yeah,
One thing I want
sometimes just a dinner out with their spouse is huge. Just give them a gift card. I mean, I'll tell you a funny one. Just this last week, our manager called, and we've been talking about this for a couple of years, but he sends us a link and said, it would really help me if I could get this golf cart. And he sends us a link. Of course, he's hitting the soft spot with me as the PGA golf professional. I'm like, ooh,
of
that's a
course.
great cart. That's a good value. Call and ask all these questions. So he got a new golf cart this week. But a lot of the reason we said yes to utilize that was because he does such a great job for us. And I want his job to be easier. I want him to feel valued. And so, you take a few $1,000 and you get him something that's going to make his job easier. So thanks for letting me share that. I just want people to remember we're people serving people in the business, not just about money and making a great retirement or whatever it is. So you had another question. I'm sorry, I kind of cut in there.
No, that's good. That's great, and I love the story you mentioned there. I was just going to ask. You said that you guys do cable and Wi-Fi for the community, correct? What
That's
is
right.
like what does that cost per unit roughly?
Well, I can tell you the value. Okay.
Okay.
They would pay $175 a month for the package we provide.
Okay. Okay. So you
And
get.
so
I see.
so I'm able to negotiate we'll call it a significant value discount by doing and saying, I'm going to pay for all of them. And in the beginning, we didn't have the community full. So I negotiated, I'll pay this many lots in year one. And then, as we increase, we'll get to full capacity. So we usually run on a 5-year contract with them, but let me tell you what it is. One of my greatest fears in this industry is government control, rent control, the inability to continue to put capital in because it doesn't make sense. And so
Right.
we continue to raise rates in a lot of ways to stay up so that we don't get behind if that comes down the tube. So there's some years we'd be like, we don't really need to raise the rent, but we have to, because if we get too far behind and this comes down, well, this tech package in some ways is an insulator, because if it came down to it in the end, I may have to stop that piece. So it's almost an internal way to eliminate an expense. But the bigger thing to us was, who out there, you heard of too many people out there providing that in their lot rent to their customers?
I mean, the only ones that I hear are like some of your, 55 and over Class A RV parks here in Florida, and maybe some of the communities, but it's mostly, Class A 55 and over RV parks.
One thing I've learned is, doesn't matter what struggles people are having, they're going to have the latest iPhone, they're going to have an Xbox, they're going to have a 65-inch TV. So let me
For
feed the
sure.
beast and make them happy living in my community, because they won't want to go somewhere else. And it's true. If they leave, they're gonna end up with at least $100. When we got this contract, a lot of people sent us thank yous and said, I was paying $125 a month for this service,
Oh, wow.
and now I have zero. You just cut
Mm.
that expense out of my life. So, and yeah, we negotiated. I can talk to you offline if you want to know more about the contracts and
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
incentives and the owner's benefits.
Yeah, but the only reason why I asked is I love the idea of that, because that's a huge value add for the residents, and it probably, for what you can get for, I guess, providing that to a number of units, is probably a relatively, you're not going to pay $125 for each, but the perceived value is what I'm trying to say of that is huge, because
100%.
you have families that they may be struggling, and maybe they have to cut the internet and the cable, and that's a huge thing for people, because you're right,
That's right.
everybody does have the latest iPhone. But I love that idea. I love that. Love it.
You,
Love
you know, it made us very successful during the pandemic as well, because think about how many people had to go to remote learning
it.
and how many people in our industry didn't have access. They couldn't
Yeah.
get on. And so
Mm.
it's been a niche, and it's been great for us. And whenever anyone talks about where our rates are, I break it down for them and show them the value stuff. And a lot of our people say, man, it's incredible that we have that as part of the plan. So, but we
Yeah.
have to, we have to move forward with lot rents. It's just where the industry is. It's the responsible thing to do. And I hope if you're listening to this and you're new getting into the business, parks that don't raise lot rents commiserate with market rates are doing their residents a disservice. Now, if you're doing it to just take all the money, you're doing it wrong too. You need to make sure
Yeah.
we're investing that back in. Our roads are fantastic. We just spent $50,000 on a new filtration system for our water plant, just to
Mm.
provide better water quality to our park. That's a big decision to
Yeah.
invest that
Big
kind of
deal.
money back into it. Um, so yeah, everybody can
Mm.
win. Everybody can
Yeah,
win.
for sure. For sure. Well, Ty, dude, it's been awesome talking to you, man. Is there anything else you would leave our listeners with before we jet here, and then finish off with where people can find you?
Do it. If you want to get in the business, just make it happen. There's so much support around you. You say it every week. If you want to get into your first park, partner with me. Like, let's have a conversation. Let's talk. There's folks out there that will support someone who wants to dig in the dirt and get it done. And
Yep.
I'm here to prove. If I went to list how many pots I have my hand in from business and work and this is just a side hustle. It's an
Mm.
investment. But it's a fantastic product to be a part of. But people ask me, is it passive? And I said, it can be pretty passive if you put the work
Hmm.
in, but it's about a good 18 to 24 months of work. And then if
Yep.
your manager changes, you might restart that 18-month cycle, because you
Yep.
live and die by your manager.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'll
That.
close with this too, is the advantage we have. Our manager was one of our part-time maintenance guys. And when our current manager left, our manager now worked for a Honda plant, and he left
Okay.
that job to come in. So we have a guy who does all the maintenance, manages all the management. He had managed an apartment complex before. It's like we kind of have a unicorn. I've heard you talk
Yeah.
on your show, like, if you think you're going to have someone come in and manage the leases and do the contract stuff and get this stuff, and I'm like, oh, I kind of got that.
You
So I'm
got
like,
the
I'm going to
unicorn, baby.
spoil him. I'm spoiling him. So, but yeah, I would just say, reach out. Don't be afraid. Um, the rates are high. The cap rate seems scary, but there's going to be deals available.
Yeah, for sure. For
So
sure.
thank you
And
so
we're
much.
already seeing some of that.
Say that again.
No, so we're already seeing some more deals starting to shake loose, but you know.
Yeah. I would just say, if somebody's serious about it, um, get in there. You're people that want to be passive. They're investors. They can get into your syndicates. They can get into those
Yep.
portfolios. But if someone wants to learn to be an owner operator, I believe the operational experience I got in the golf business, in the military, even in the ministry stuff, is what made me really successful in this business, because I think a lot of people are good investors. They're not good operators. So I
Mm.
see a lot of people, they get the deal, they get it going, and then they move on to the next deal, and they don't pause to really build that asset. Well, now we have a very strong turnkey asset. If somebody wanted to come in, and you've learned this, I've heard you talk about this. In the beginning, it was all value add, right? No, I'm just buying value add. I'm just buying value add. And I think you're now getting more open to the idea of, it's going to take me 2 to 3 years either way. Would I rather do it
Yeah.
with a strong community and let it ride? Or would I rather beat my head in trying to find homes and, you know,
deal with code enforcement and the health department and
Well,
permitting. No, oh, oof.
and I will tell you, we saw a big change when we bought the community. I think there were 74 active homes, and we have 199. We
Mhm.
brought in, I think we filled the park out in 15 months. So we
Oh,
were
wow.
buying homes and moving them in. You couldn't do that today, I don't think. I don't think there's any way we were buying homes for anywhere from free to 15 grand. I think
Wow.
we got 2 homes for free that were on farmland, and they said, if you'll come get it. So we brought it in for 5 grand to move it. We spent 10 to 15 to rehab it and make it really nice. Many of them we turned around and sold. Boy, you'd be paying 25 grand for that home probably. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
So
crazy.
be careful. I guess I say that in closing to say be careful if you're going to don't overestimate how fast you can infill a community because the homes are just harder to get and the new ones are double what they used to be.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's guys that I know that are really, really good at that. And, I just tell, people that are just starting, you find this park and you're like, man, this is a great deal. There's 50 vacant lots. There's 20 occupied. Like it's cheap. We're not even paying for the vacant lots. But like, do you realize the time and effort and the cash it's going to take to fill those up? It's not easy. It's definitely not easy. And, I think people just sometimes underestimate the effort required to do that. So,
That's right. No, I thought it was fun. I love doing it that way, but I just think I don't want to see people get underwater by being too aggressive, thinking, I'm going to put 15 homes on here. Um, I mean, we're in a similar spot. We have a lot of land, and so we've
mhm.
drawn up plans of potential trying to get permitting for expansion. But the expense to build infrastructure and bring in more homes, it's like, oh my gosh, I don't. So we voted it down. We're like,
Yeah.
maybe we should build storage units on our extra land.
Yeah. Well, not only the cost of building that, the permitting you have to go through and getting all
Yeah.
the agencies to talk to you. We went through this last year. And the worst part of it was like the construction part was the easy part. It was actually getting the permit, dealing with the city, dealing with the county, and getting everything lined up and getting blah 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 blah. Like it was just a nightmare.
Yeah. The governmental agencies want us to move very fast, and then when it's their turn, they don't move very fast.
Correct. That's
So
correct.
that water filtration I told you we put in, we were 1 week from installing it when they all of a sudden decided they wanted to have a different group meeting. And all we're doing is replacing and upgrading. It took them 7 months to sign off on their committee deal. I have the equipment sitting at the building, waiting to go in the deal, and they're like, "You can't put it in." And I'm
Wow.
like, "You've been asking me for 2 years to make this change. I've invested the money, and now you're gonna. Well, we can't get the committee together. So and so's not." I'm like, it was brutal. So
Wow. I feel your pain. I feel your pain.
like, I
Well,
just thought of something I want to share one last thing because
sure.
it's just about value. Okay, this is another value thing for folks that are running communities. There are a lot of programs in states to generate grants
Mm,
and monies for your community. Don't be afraid of those. A lot of our people were very don't be afraid of the work it takes. We generated a lot of revenue during the pandemic from state funds that were available for our residents, and we incentivized our manager to help those people fill out those forms and get help. One that I want to really mention, though, if somebody out there has utilities, we got a $12,000 grant to put a generator on our water plant. So when the
huh.
power goes out, it runs our water system still, fully funded by a grant.
Oh, wow.
Um, so it took me filling out the form. It took some work, but in the
Yeah.
end, our residents now have water continually flowing if the power goes out. Pretty incredible.
Mm, yeah.
So
Love that.
uh, all you got to do is pop onto some of your state organizations and look. I see the grants all the time out there. So
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. Great info. Um, Ty, man, I appreciate you coming on the show and
You
sharing
bet.
some of your knowledge. Tons of value, diving into operations and things here. So thank you for coming on, and thank you everyone for tuning in to the MHP show this week. Please like and subscribe, leave a comment, YouTube, Spotify. Where else are we? iTunes, everywhere. So you can find us. You can follow me on all social medias. I'm posting all the time, but we will see you all next week. Peace.